to just interrupt me and stop. I'm happy to stop along the way. We can stop sharing the screen at whatever point you want. But I thought I'd maybe try to quickly go through that, just the information we have, and then kind of jump into some more general stuff and some questions. Does that work? Okay. All right. So just to kind of tell you where we are today, as of yesterday, actually, we had 983,850 active registered voters in Palm Beach County. You can see the way it splits out, the Democratic, Republican Party, the NPA, and minor parties. Just something I thought you'd find interesting, 52% of the registered voters are actually women. And actually, in terms of, that holds true too for how many people actually vote. So as we, Palm Beach County is interesting because as we continue to increase the number of people who we register, and of course when we're registering or third parties are registering, they come from all different places, and yet it has pretty much remained 30% have been NPA, 42% Democratic, 28% Republican. So even those percentages haven't changed since I came into office, which I thought was interesting. Okay, sorry, okay, there we go. Jumping in just to 2020, we have August 18th is our next election. That's our primary election. We just finished June 2nd. We had an election out in Belle Glade. Belle Glade chose not to be part of the March elections. They wanted their own standalone. So they just did that. That went perfectly, worked out very well. So our next one is August 18th. That is a primary. So in Florida, being that we are a closed primary state, it's very important that if somebody wants to vote for a partisan party, a partisan race, then they have to be registered in that party. And we try to bring that up because some people who have grown up here say, well, you know, of course, we knew that. But people who come from other states, that's not the case in a lot of states, in fact, in most states. So we like to make sure everybody knows that if you want to vote for a particular candidate and it's a partisan race as opposed to like a judicial race or constitutional issues, those are nonpartisan. But for the partisan races, you do have to be registered in that party. You can also, you know, people ask, well, how often can I change parties? You can change parties every single day if you want to. Costs us a lot of money because we got to keep every day sending you out a new voter registration card, but you can, there's nothing to stop you. You can change parties as often as you like. But the end of book closing, which is 29 days before the election, is when that will establish your party for that upcoming election. So whatever party that you're registered on for July 20th is going to be the party that you have for the primary election. Now, when we get into November, because it's a general election and you can vote for anybody of any party, that doesn't really matter, but still the deadline to register for that is August 5th. And so vote by mail ballots, a big thing that we'll talk a little bit about. Those have to be mailed 10 days in advance. Your last day to request those would be on August 8th for this election and on October 24th for the general election. And we are having 14 days of early voting. We had actually requested from the governor that we extend that at least for November just to try to avoid lines, because particularly because of COVID. But the governor has not yet gotten back to us on that. So we don't know if we're going to have that availability. But for now, we have 14 days of early voting. There's actually a little thing we've recently decided to change it. So the early voting here lists 10 to 6 in August, but it is actually 10 to 7. We extended that just to give people who are working out a little extra time if they wanted to go to early voting at the end of the day. So looking COVID-19, it's the big thing people are talking about. You know, what are we doing? So PPE, you know, it's hard to get, but we've been ordering it for a while. We're not, although we're considered essential, we're not, of course, first responders or frontline workers. But we have been able to get, we have for August and a lot of it for November, but we have all of our equipment now already for August. So we have, for our poll workers, we'll have masks, we have gloves, we'll have, they'll have disposable thermometers. So poll workers will have their temperatures taken in the morning before they work the polls, so as not to infect each other or voters who come in. We'll have hand sanitizing wipes or hand sanitizing gel, whichever half and half of each, and then also the disinfecting wipes. We've also ordered, and they're in the process of being made now, uh, the plexiglass that you see at a lot of places. We'll have those in between the voter and the poll worker as well. So we're really working hard to try to make sure that we'll have that. Of course, we'll have social distancing in the polling location, which does mean, because a lot of these are not large locations, that we'll have fewer people in them at any given time, which leads to there will be more of a line. So we are going to send out, hopefully everybody will get who's intending to go to the polls. We will be sending out a sample ballot, so people hopefully can be prepared when they come in, kind of know where they want to, who they want to vote for. So hopefully we can keep those lines moving. We are trying right now to look at polling places, because we have had a number of them cancel on us, and we had that issue last time as well. But now that it's, especially with the bounce back, so we had 14 call yesterday. And so that's a challenge for us, because we have some of those, in fact, of the 14, 11 of them were sort of standalone for their community. So it's a 55 and older community. Their clubhouse was the polling location for all of the residents in their area. And now we'll be taking those residents and having to put them someplace else. And so, you know, it does upset people when they're no longer able to go there. But, you know, we also understand a lot of the polling locations, they don't have to service us. And many of them have chosen not to. So we're in the process now working with the school district and looking for additional, so maybe moving to some schools or looking for some additional sites to try to offset that. Because ideally, we would like to not have to reduce the number of sites, as long as we can get the poll workers, which is the next thing there. As long as we can get the poll workers, we'd like to keep the number of sites we have, so that rather than combining them, so that we can have shorter lines. Poll worker recruitment, big thing for us. I'm going to talk about that a little bit more. So it takes about 4,000 poll workers for us to run an election. Poll workers and support staff. So whether that's our call center, the rovers for the equipment, the field clerks who are going around to each of the different polling locations, but it takes about 4,000. And because of the concern with lines, and because of just the safety factor that is out there, we are encouraging people to consider vote by mail. And a lot of people ask about that. I say it's not political at all. To me, this is just a safety issue. And people, you know, COVID affects people from both parties, and NPAs just as well. So we're saying if you have the concern of being around other people and being in line with other folks, especially in November for what could likely be a long time, we want to make sure that you know you have the option for vote by mail. And so one of the things we have that's going to help us, though, is we do have a new voter registration system, and we have new equipment, as you know. And so the new registration system was a big task to bring in, because it's everything that we do. It's a whole new system, a lot of training, but it is much more secure than our old system was. And it also puts us on par with the rest of the state. So everybody else in the state is using this system now. And so should something break, or there be an issue, or we needed backup for things, we would be able to get to people and get equipment and things from other counties, where before we were standalone and could not do that. Another thing we've done is website. We've changed our website so that it's, again, much more user-friendly. We've tried to put a lot of things on there that the public used to have to ask for, do a public records request. So we were saying, you know, it's available to the public anyway if we can put it in a way that's accessible to them without them having to call. So we've tried to add a lot more information to our website, and we're continuing to do that. One of the things that we've added is the early voting waiting times. So because at early voting, you can go to any location. You don't have to go to your precinct. So you can go to your, and you'll look and say, all right, well, this one has an hour wait. This one's only 5 minutes farther away of a drive, and it only has a 20-minute wait. So you might make that decision to go someplace else. So we tried to keep those updated. It worked really well for us. And March. Of course, in March, we really never had much of a line, so we didn't get to completely test it, but it worked well. The other thing you can do is track your vote by mail ballot. So you can go onto our website through the My Status button. You just put in your name and your birth date. It'll bring you to a screen that tells you everything we know about you, what party you're registered with, whether or not you have a vote by mail ballot on request, what address we have for you. A lot of people have moved and forgotten, oh shoot, I never updated my voter's address. So then you end up having to do that at the polls. And if you go on election day, they may send you to a different place than what's on your voter card because now you've moved. So we're trying to get people to check that, make sure that you know what we have on file for you, because it's very easy to change ahead of time. So let's get that done. And then it will also tell you once we sent you your vote by mail ballot out, and then it'll tell you when we've received it back. It'll tell you if there's a problem with your signature, and then it'll tell you when it's been counted. So it gives people, I think, a little bit more feeling of control, that they know what happened to their ballot and that it didn't just get lost in the mail. And there are times where we'll have people call us and say, I sent it in, it's not showing up, and we just haven't gotten it yet. So we can always then send another one out. Our equipment is sophisticated enough that if we send you a second one out, we get the first one back, it's going to count the first one and your second one won't be counted. So it does give you voter history and will only count you one time. The other thing we've done, which has helped, I think, a lot of the parties and candidates that used to have to send poll watchers out because they didn't know how many people had shown up at their polls yet. Well, how many people have been to this precinct? What's the party breakdown? Who's gone to vote on election day? So we now have a voter turnout part of our website that you can go on at any point during the day. And I'd say it's probably accurate within about 15 minutes. So you'll be able to see within a 15-minute or so, give or take, how many people have turned out, either for the whole party or divided by precinct, divided by location. And you can see a lot of information as the day goes on. And we can leave that up until about 6 o'clock or so, 6 to 6:15. And then we take that part of it down so that we can sort of change it to be ready to receive election results starting right after 7. A little breath here. New programs we've done, which have been kind of exciting, as I mentioned, getting poll workers is a really big thing for us. So Adopt a Precinct is great for not-for-profit organizations, for schools, for churches, temples, any group that has not taken a position on anything on the ballot. So if you've endorsed a candidate or you've taken a position on a constitutional issue, then you would not be able to do this. But if you haven't, then charitable groups or different groups can get together and say, we're going to get a group of people and we're going to take this whole precinct. We'll adopt the precinct. And when they do that, they still follow the same rules. Can't have every poll worker, can't be of all the same party. Some places we might need to have a bilingual poll worker, which we can help supply you if you need. Go through all the same training that all the poll workers do, but you have put together your own group of people, and you can wear your shirts. You can have a sign. We'll actually prepare a sign saying, we had the Elks Club before. We had Barky Pines. We had the Links, of African-American one group of professional women. And so we had some really good ones. It was our first time doing it, and I think they enjoyed it, and I think all of them are coming back. We've had Kiwanis sign up for this time. I think Junior League has signed up for this time. So it's different ways. A couple of charities have contacted us that they'd like to try to do this because they said we have a huge volunteer base and they'd be willing to volunteer their time. And then what we do is the money we would have paid that poll worker then goes to that charity or that organization. So it's a great way for marching bands to raise money for uniforms, athletic groups, that type of thing. Another thing we've done is vote in honor of a veteran. And that allows us to just recognize those who are either living in our county, used to live in our county, people here whose relatives are in our county that served in the armed forces, either previously or currently. And so what we do with that is we will take the names, and if you go onto our website, you'll see it. We have a vote in honor of a vet page, and we'll put on there, a lot of times they'll send us their picture from when they were in uniform, and then their picture today. We'll put that, we'll talk any information they give us, the branch of the service, what their ranking was, what they did, and any information they want to tell us about themselves. And we put that on our website. We also have a rolling screen in our office now where it's always rolling. So it's sort of our virtual wall of honor to honor those people who fought for this freedom that we have. And then we're also trying to use that as outreach to students. So when we go into the schools and to pre-register or register students to vote, we're going to take with us or laminate them or something and say, when you're registering to vote, you can choose to vote in honor of a veteran. And if you don't have one in your family that you want to honor, take one of these, and we'll give the basket, they take it out. So on election day, they'll go for, John Doe, they'll say, I'm registering and I'm going to vote in honor of John Doe, who fought for my freedom. And then on election day, we have special stickers that say, I voted in honor of a veteran, with a place for them to put that veteran's name. So we're just trying to tie our community into voting in a lot of different ways. Election security, obviously a big thing, although all the focus is now on COVID. The bad guys didn't go away. So we still have a lot of the same issues that, in fact, probably even more so than we read about before. And it's something we're always on top of. Cybersecurity is a major thing for us. Just generally speaking, we do have decentralized elections in Florida, which is good because somebody can't hack into a specific one place state database and do things there. We have 67 different counties who are running their own elections. Florida has requires paper ballots. So even for our ADA equipment, which is a touch screen, it is not tabulating anything. It's just a mark sense, and it is printing out a paper ballot for you. So we'll always have paper ballots in Florida that can always be gone back to. With our own internal network, we have hired a cybersecurity specialist to be on staff to work with us. We have been working with the FBI, the Department of Homeland Security. The state has cyber navigators. They all kind of do a little bit different things, but we have given them very broad access to our office because we want the expertise they have. We've also joined what's called the Albert server. We had been the only county in the state who hadn't done that, and we have now signed on. So now all 67 counties in the state are part of this Albert server, which is monitored by a Division of Homeland Security, and they're looking across the state at, especially nation state actors, and are they seeing a lot of hits trying to get into any system. So they're monitoring that and can let us know so that we can jump on that if we need to. We are, of course, testing our equipment, pre-election testing, where we do our LNA tests, logic and accuracy tests. Those are always open to the public, where we run the ballots that we're going to be using. We run those through with all kinds of different test patterns so that we can show what we expect it to be, the results to be, and then show that the results, in fact, are what came out, so that we know that equipment has been properly done. At the end of the night, we also have a results reconciliation where we will, while the equipment is, only thing that's been done is been plugged into a wall, nothing but power, not onto the internet, no modems or anything. We will, at the end of the night, we then run the tape, and it will show the results of that precinct. And we run it twice, one that we actually post on the door so that immediately the public can come and look and see what the results were from that location. And then one comes back to our office. And so then after that, then they modem the results back to our office. And that's what you'll see as our first set of unofficial results. Before they become official, within 7 to 10 days, depending on which election it is, we will have gone through and checked the tape from every machine to make sure that that is in fact the same as the vote that was modemed across, so that we can that way make sure that in that transmission, although it's not over the public-facing internet, it is through a direct secure modem, but that's our way of making sure that there wasn't anything that was changed in that transmission. So we do that before anything becomes final. And then, of course, we have a post-election audit that's also done in the Public Act. So we try to really do a lot to make sure that we don't have any issues there. Poll worker recruitment, I know we talked about it a couple of times, but I feel like I can't say it enough. It's going to be what we really need. We did have, unfortunately, in March, because COVID kind of snuck up on people. So we had already trained all these poll workers. So we had 974 people call us to cancel the week before the election because of COVID. So at least we knew that was the case, and we were able to try to be looking for new ones. Unfortunately, we also had an additional 602 people who had in fact confirmed on Monday before. We had each individual clerk for each polling location. So over 400 clerks were calling all of the poll workers working for them. They all confirmed by say 10 o'clock Monday night, and 602 were not able to actually work on election day. So that was a bit of a surprise and put us into a little bit of a tailspin. We were very fortunate, though. We did unfortunately have to have 3 locations that we could not open. Everything else, some of them did get opened a bit later because we had to get people moved from one location to another. So we are doing everything we can this time for that not to happen. And those locations, by the way, that we couldn't open, we did move them over to a different location. But we'd like to be able to not have that confusion. So we're looking for as many poll workers as we can get. We have increased the pay for the first time in 10 years. So now the pay range is from $190 to $320 for the day, depending upon which position you're working. Spanish-speaking poll workers is something we always need. Poll workers do have to, by law, read and speak English, but there are, if it's a precinct that has a high level of registered self-identified Hispanic voters, then we also need to have a bilingual Spanish speaking poll worker there. So anybody you know who would want to be a poll worker, please have them apply online today as fast as they can. And last, just being prepared to vote. Look at your voter registration information, as I mentioned on the earlier, that's something we can really help cause, especially with the primary, if we can get everybody to look at what we have for them. We did send a mailer out in January to every registered voter that said, this is the information we have for you. Please make sure it's correct. If it's not, you have time to call us and change it. And we did receive a lot of calls for that. We won't be sending that out again because it's just mailings are so expensive. So we are pushing people to go to the website, make sure that we have the right information for you. You can, like I said, choose your party affiliation before that book closing deadline, which is July 20th for the August election. And then if you want to do vote by mail, you can do that vote by mail. A ballot, you can make that request starting today. You can make it, anytime. You can choose it for one election for August and November only, or for all elections for the next 2 years. And one thing that's really important to know is that just because you got a vote by mail ballot in the mail, because you made that request and we sent you a vote by mail ballot, does not mean that you only can vote by mail. So what it does is it gives you that option. And now that I think about it, I really want to go to the polls. You can still do that. When you arrive, they're going to say, we see that you had a vote by mail ballot request. Did you send in that ballot? If you say yes, they're going to call us up and check on it. If you say no, they're going to allow you to vote. But what that's going to do is when they vote, it triggers our office here to make sure that our vote by mail folks are looking, because then if it turns off the availability of your mail ballot to be counted. So we have a lot of protections in there so that you can still only vote once, but you have the choice of how you're going to do it, even if you have a vote by mail ballot. And then if you decide to go to vote on election day or through early voting, as I said, you can go to any location, and we have expanded the number of locations that we have, just again to try to avoid lines. But we also, on election day, you do have to go to the precinct to which you're assigned based on your registered address. So make sure that you're going to the right precinct, check that out. Again, you can call our office anytime, and we try to make it really easy for you by having almost all this stuff available on the website as well. So the biggest thing is make sure you vote, because that's the most important thing that we're trying to get people to do. And with that, I'll let you guys ask questions.
We just asked if there are information available in Creole.
Okay, so in Creole, we're going to have one on our ballots, but what we do have is on the express vote, which is our ADA compliant, and we do have Creole both in writing as well as verbally, because I'm told that a lot of our Creole speakers, it's a spoken language more than a written language for many of them. And so we have it in the ballot at every polling location. A Creole speaker can go to the express vote. They can read it in Creole, as well as put on the headphones and listen to it in Creole.
We also have a question. What is the process to identify more polling places? Are we approaching the faith community?
Yes, we have a lot. We use a lot of churches and temples. We also have, we've also other faiths that have different facilities. We have used those as well. Some of the churches and temples are some of the ones who have pulled out because they're not open. They don't want to have the risk of having the infection, the virus spread through, they say. So we have lost some of those, but yes, we're looking for anything that has big sites. So particularly in the areas where places have canceled, the process is we go on Google Earth and we look in that whole area and try to find a big facility. And then we figure out what that is and find out whether it's ADA accessible and whether or not they'll let us come there. So for early voting, it's a little bit different, because early voting statutorily, we can only go to certain types of locations. But for election day, as long as it's ADA compliant, we can go to a lot of different types of facilities.
Okay, I have a question. What is the strategy to encourage voting in traditionally low turnout areas?
So we're trying in those low turnout areas, for one, East Delray is an area that we had been told was for early voting, that they had transportation problems to get there. So we just got approval Tuesday from the Delray City Beach Commission to let us go to their community center. So we will have now an early voting site in East Delray that we're hoping will be something people can get to. The other is we are really pushing the vote by mail for areas that people don't either feel safe, it's hard for them to get transportation, because for the first time ever, we do have the prepaid postage. And so we're letting people know that this could be, if the reason you have trouble getting to the polls is transportation, or just being intimidated and not liking to do that. We do hear from some voters, I'm not tech savvy. I don't want to be embarrassed going to the polling location because I won't know how to work the equipment. We tell them we have poll workers there who can help you, but for some people, they don't like to do that. So having to come up with the postage was a problem for some people. So now that it's postage prepaid, we're hoping that will help. Also, people who don't feel comfortable with the post office, you can take your vote by mail ballot and drop it off at any of the polling locations. So now we'll definitely have at least 17. We're trying to get an 18th right now, but we'll have at least 17 early voting locations throughout the county that during early voting times, you can also drop those ballots off then. And then finally, we're working with a lot of the third-party organizations to just help get the word out. First, have the traditional Souls to the Polls Day with early voting. And we are working a lot with the churches who to try to help us promote voting in that area.
So that kind of leads into the next question. Someone asked how we're going to ensure Palm Beach County doesn't have the same or similar scenario as Georgia. What steps are we utilizing to promote voter trust?
Yeah, so the Georgia issue is something we're very concerned about because, again, it takes poll workers to put these on. I have a staff of 50 people. So, it takes 4,000 to do election day. So if you think about, all these businesswomen, your business has its biggest day of the year with 4,000 people who work for you for one day. And so it's a difficult thing for us. And so we are, like I said, what we're really trying to do is really push for more workers. If we can't get them, and we're looking internally, and one of the things we did, the school district has been a great partner with us, and they have agreed, for example, that they're going to send out to all their junior and senior high school students the opportunity to either get community service hours or to be paid, because if you're pre-registered or registered to vote, you can be a poll worker. So although they're not going to perhaps have the confidence to lead something, they're very technologically savvy and can easily check voters in. So it gives us, again, more poll worker bodies. Of course, we're trying with this adoptive precinct to reach out and get other places. We're working with the political parties. Leadership Palm Beach County has been great to us. For a lot of the members of Leadership Palm Beach County are involved in a lot of organizations. So it's through Leadership Palm Beach County that we got a lot of adoptive precinct. So we've got a few precincts coming in. So our key is really going to be poll workers to make sure we have enough people to properly staff the locations, and that's going to let us leave all those locations open. If we don't, then we're going to have to combine locations, and we'll have to combine them before the voting period so that we can get that information out to voters. And that then just creates lines. And so we're already, as I mentioned, because we have, we used to be able to put side by side, you could have all of your voting booths because it gave you the privacy. Now we're not able to do that because you have to have 6 feet apart. Same thing with our poll workers, 6 feet apart. So it's a lot of additional space. And so the lines are going to be an issue. And that's why we have also been really pushing vote by mail, as opposed to Georgia, where they're not really used to vote by mail because that's not been a big part of the way they vote. Theirs has been more focused just on absentee if you can't be there that day. Florida, probably 15 years ago or more, went to vote by mail without excuse as an option. So we have many more procedures already in place over the years that have been developed that we're much more able to handle larger vote by mail volumes.
Okay, I want to be respectful of your time, so we'll just do one more question. And again, the other questions that I have in the chat box, I'll be sure to email and we'll get responses for you. The last question is if one votes early outside of their designated precinct, what identification is required? Where can we get a list of early voting sites?
Okay, the early voting sites, well, now that we have we're trying to get one more. So now that we have Delray, so those early voting sites will be published probably by early July, and we'll have those out on our website, and we'll send them out to the newspapers as well. For when you are voting out a precinct, I'd say for early voting, where you can go to any place, you take your and a form of ID, and with your form of ID, and on our website, there's I think 12 or 16 different types of ID we can accept. And we can do combinations for people who don't have, if you have a driver's license, that's all you need. But if you don't have a driver's license, we can take something that has a picture, like maybe a Costco card, and then a credit card that has your signature on the back. And we can combine things to do that. Then what happens is we pull up your address, and on the early voting locations, we don't have the pre-printed ballots because obviously we have 2,400 different ballot styles. So when we're printing ballots, we have 2,400 different styles of them because we have, for every precinct we have, which is right now 871, then we will have a Democratic, a Republican, and a NPA ballot style. And so, but we just print on demand. So when you go to early voting, you're supposed to be in, and then it will automatically print the ballot that's appropriate for you.
Okay, again, I want to thank everyone for joining us today and thank the supervisor for taking time to share her expertise. I will be sending links to you that those of you that ask questions, I'll send those questions on to get those answers for you. And also, please, there's a quick 3-question poll that will pop up when you close out of this meeting. So thank you again, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. And if you have any feedback, please let us know.
Yes, and I apologize for the technical difficulty. I don't know what happened, but I'm happy to, I'll respond to those questions as soon as you send them to me so you can get them out to the members.
Terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.